Let's get into our featured review for this week. We've referenced it many times. Now it's time to talk about it. We all went and watched the new indie hit coming out of Sundance this year, Sasquatch Sunset. Todd and I actually got to watch this together. We just happened to be going to the
Did
same showtime at the same theater.
this was not coordinated? It was total accident.
It was slightly coordinated. I texted him and I said, "Are you going to see the movie at this time tonight?" And he said yes. And so we decided we were going to sit next to each other.
That's
But
mostly coordinated. That's like 70% coordinated.
yeah, somewhat. Anyways, so we watched it together and we don't talk about it after it's over.
It's like Fight Club.
But the one thing Todd did say, and this is why Todd's going to start us off on this. Todd looked at me after it ended and said, "How are we going to review this?"
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of out there. So for that sentiment alone, Todd, you get to start us off and tell us all about Sasquatch Sunset and what you thought.
Okay. I think this finished 14th at the box office this week, so it made almost no money, which I guess makes sense.
And that's why you listen to the Almost Sideways podcast.
It's directed by Nathan Zellner and David Zellner, and this is the Sasquatch experience. The actors are Jesse Eisenberg, Riley Keough, I think David Zellner, and Christoph Zajac Denick. And that's about it. Like, it shows these Sasquatches in some unknown forest in some unknown time, but I guess it's somewhat current. And you see their characteristics being similar to monkeys, sort of similar to humans, sort of similar to aliens. I don't know. It's pretty wild. The costumes or makeup or whatever they actually are using is kind of convincing. The only time you get to see any bit of the actors is in their eyes. And there are no words in this movie. There's just grunts and noises, and they have a way of communicating to each other, but we don't get subtitles, so we don't actually know what they're communicating. Some tragic things happen, some moments that are trying to be emotional, and it's too freaking weird for that to really work. The Zellners are crazy. They directed this movie Kumiko the Treasure Hunter, and which is pretty out there too, but kind of good. They also made this movie Damsel, which is a bizarre Western I had completely forgotten about and I didn't know they directed. Their wavelength is really hard to fully embrace, but parts of it I can kind of see it. That's why for me, like, immediately watching it, I thought of Rubber, which is like another premise that's like almost nothing, but and also limited in dialogue, I guess. But you're right. If you're in the right mindset, it could kind of work for you. And this just feels like a Quentin Dupieux movie at its core. And there's also some like juvenile like bathroom humor essentially that is hard not to think of. The 3-time Oscar-winning directors, the Daniels and Swiss Army Man. The Sasquatches, to me, it was like watching a whole movie about the wild things and where the wild things are, because they're all pretty unruly. They have like unique characteristics, and they sort of sleep in a pile, and they really are just in their own world that they kind of realize isn't actually their own world. And it also kind of reminded me of watching Jerry, which I think the tone and stakes are similar. And like the biggest climax of this movie is one of them starts playing on a log, and most of the movie is just like them walking around some like unknown area. And I told Terry that the baby Sasquatch looked like if old baby Benjamin Button was born as a Wookiee, and I still stand by that. I don't entirely understand the whole mountain lion thing. Like, you would think that they live in this area and they probably have interacted with that thing before, but in this movie we see him twice and it's like life and death situations. My favorite part was the badger, because he didn't want to be petted like a cat, and that was also the most relatable part of the movie. It's just so strange. I'm not even sure I'm really getting across anything. I wasn't fully in on it at any point, but it wasn't necessarily boring. It's just something. It's a movie I watched, and I'm giving it 2 stars.
Well done, Todd. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go next because I sat right next to you, and I was the exact opposite. I was totally in on this thing. I was having a blast with it. You just kind of get immersed into this weird, random scenario. And you're right. If you're in the right mindset, it's perfect. And I must have been in the right mindset, because you just have to sit back and experience this thing and just go along for the ride. You're right. It's a silent movie. There's no, I mean, there are moments where I'm like, okay, why do we have to listen to 30 seconds of the grunting? when we know we are not going to understand a thing, like 5 seconds of the grunting would have done. Like, we don't need a grunting soliloquy. But at the same time, I mean, this movie is so much, it's so much fun. Like, there's random, just like normal, like human stuff that happens, like the badger thing that you're just like, you just have to laugh at that. I don't know. I totally was all over this thing. It was just cool. It was cool. I'm 3.5 stars. I'm going that high. This was just a blast. I don't know why. It's like you said, you have to be on the right wavelength at the right time to just sit back, relax, and enjoy watching Sasquatches exist. And because that's all this movie is. And it does it well. It does it well. Zach, where were you at with this one?
Well, normally when we do these things, you have me go last, and I split the atom between Terry and Todd here. But in this case, I 100% agree with one of you, and that person is Terry. I love this movie too. I had a lot of doubts going into this one. First of all, I had to drive like 40 minutes to see it. Come on, Regal. And, a movie about Sasquatches that had a fairly comic trailer with Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough. I don't know if I was on board for it. And the first 20 minutes are a little bit hard to get into because, as Todd said, the characters don't have names. I can't definitively say which one was Jesse Eisenberg and which one was Nathan Zeller. I still don't quite understand the relationships between the characters. And this is the one movie where I'd say that's probably okay, because Sasquatch Society probably doesn't have those strict delineations between wife and husband and wait, what did you say? Not the title?
Sasquatch Sunset.
I didn't even say the title. I was saying Sasquatch doesn't. The Sasquatch Society does not have. I didn't mean to say the title.
Oh,
this is not.
Okay.
This is not
He wasn't going for the title.
This is not Society of the Sasquatches, although that would have been a good title too. But no. I gotta say, this movie I thought was absolutely fascinating. It's fascinating to me less as a comedy, more as a like weird David Attenborough observational nature documentary. In the same way that you watch Planet Earth, I guess, the series. I thought it was absolutely fascinating trying to understand the culture that they have, the things that they encounter along the way. For a while in this movie, you don't know if this is set in prehistoric times. You don't know. Now, later on, the movie answers some of those questions, but I like that sort of suspense element to it. And I think most of all, I really like that the directors take this seriously. This is not an SNL sketch, okay? This is not Will Ferrell in a Sasquatch costume. I mean, they are really committed to these roles. The makeup is amazing. I couldn't tell. I mean, it might as well have been us three as the Sasquatches. There's no way you could tell it was those actors. So I guess it's a remarkable testament to both the actors and the makeup stuff. For a movie that didn't have characters or clear character names or character personalities or a dialogue of any kind, this movie was really compelling. I thought it was interesting, the situations that they got into. I didn't know where the movie was going. And you got to think it's a hard premise to sell, the idea that you're going to make a movie about a bunch of Sasquatches and it's not really going to be funny. The trailers kind of made it seem funny. There's scatological things in the movie, but that's also just the way it is really in nature. So I don't know. Some of the critics who have been attacking this movie said it's not funny enough or it's too funny. And what I would say is that I just think this movie is just real. It's like what would really happen if Sasquatches existed. Kind of like Terry and Todd's coordination, I would say they're about 70% human, 30% ape of some kind. And it's curious the way that they're just a little bit more human and a little bit more advanced than the ape. They have a signal for fucking, which is great. One of them holds up a turtle like a cell phone, which is kind of interesting. They say one of them, like the kid in The Shining, he has an imaginary friend on his hand, which is really fast. I mean, there's no way you could watch that. Maybe that's one of two cinematic odes to Stanley Kubrick in this movie, because of course you also think about the opening 30 minutes of 2001 when you watch this. My only real issue with the movie is that I think there are a couple instances when the directors kind of shoehorn themselves into the story just a little bit. Mainly the scene where, and again, I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but the cadre of Sasquatches come across a unexpected development and they start freaking out, and a lot of juices start flowing outside their bodies. And I sort of thought, that seems like it's the directors trying to be the Daniels and they're trying to be funny. We didn't need that. And I would also say too that, again, I'll tread lightly here, I think the Sasquatches would have had more encounters with other civilizations. I don't think it would, their reaction would have been that outraged and that intense. It just doesn't seem like it. And I think the movie could have had sort of a pro-environmental, pro-ecological message. Leo would have appreciated that. But it doesn't, because it's just content to be this observational, fly on the wall, quite literally cinema verite faux documentary, which I love that approach. And I applaud the filmmakers for really, for the most part, being observational. So I give this movie 3.5 stars. It's my number one movie of 2024 at this point. And I think even on a second watch, I bet you'd notice things that you didn't notice the first time.
Oh, totally. There's going to be stuff that we missed that popped up here.
Maybe,
the other thing
but there's almost nothing in it.
Oh, I disagree completely. There's a lot of subtlety in it. Like there's you want to know what they're thinking, right? And that's the main question throughout the movie. What are they thinking? What are they reacting to? And you want to know about their relationships. You want to know if they have an understanding of their own feelings at times. There's a lot of times where actually the actors are kind of restrained, especially Riley Keough. There's times, especially in the second half of the movie, where the camera just kind of lingers on her face as she's wondering about things. I mean, that's fascinating. It's way more fascinating than anything in Civil War or anything in typical action movies. Just Sasquatch's face uninterrupted for 30 seconds. I love it. Give me more of that.
I will say the one Nathan Zellner's Sasquatch, who's like the patriarchal one of the group. I did tell Todd. I mean, as close as you can get to one. I don't know. He kind of looks like the Sasquatch from the Jack Link's beef jerky commercials. Messing with Sasquatch like that. That's the one thing I was like, oh, he kind of has that look to him, like half ape, half Klingon.
Yeah, they definitely had a Klingon vibe. I was also thinking about the aliens and Mars attacks in the way that their brains sometimes extrude from their foreheads, and a little bit of the Mars attacks language in this movie too. But I gotta say, like, imagine trying to seriously sell a studio to make this movie. I mean, kudos to these directors. It would have been made in France, I'm sure, or Japan. But here in the United States, and maybe the actors were involved in it too. Like, I think quietly, again, going back to Civil War, everyone's like, oh, Alex Garland, so ambitious, so audacious. This is the ambitious movie, okay? This premise with no talking and no human characters, and they're not even cute, and they shit a lot. They shit half the movie and throw up and stuff. And it's kind of a wonderful movie. I mean, out of nowhere. So kudos on picking this one, Todd. I was upset that we didn't go with Abigail, but this actually ended up being a little better than Abigail.
Did they steal their one of their hand motions from Friends? I think they did.
Which one?
Well,
I mean, that's
Terry. This is a very bold statement. I'm not feeling comfortable right now in this podcast. I think I'm that I might have to. Wow, that was. They didn't see it, but that was quite a gesture that you just gave.
Oh well, thank you.
I also think the baby Sasquatch, probably the worst prosthetic since the baby in American Sniper. But you know what? I didn't care by that point. I could kind of get past the fact that it oddly did not move at all. Because
it looked so weird.
It was very strange, like the whole movie experience.
I still love Todd's. It's if Yoda were born as a Wookiee.
No, Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button. If
old baby Benjamin Button.
Old baby Benjamin Button were born as a Wookiee. That's beautiful. All right. Well, Todd's giving it 2 stars. Zach and I are giving it 3.5 stars. It's in theaters now, but it's the small movie that came out, and there were like 5 movies that came out this weekend. It's not going to be around very long. I think our theater only had 2 screenings of it a day over the
Were you
weekend.
the only ones in the theater?
There were 2 others.
Okay, there were also like two or three others in my theater too. I think some of them were making Sasquatch noises. So and again, this was on 420, so maybe that's it's sort of intentional timing there. Nice work by the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this movie made $453,000.
It didn't even get to $1 million. Wow, that's sad.
Okay, but
go see Go see it.
The leader of the box office was Civil War with 11 million.
Outside of the prosthetics and paying crew and cast and all that, I mean that movie must have been what, $20. I mean, there's like nothing in the movie, so I can't imagine that it's going to be hurting too much in terms of the studio that financed it. But I do wish more people would see
movie,
it.
right?
I believe so.
Yeah.